Good afternoon. Today we're going to run through two of the Datastax tutorials, getting started with Apache Cassandra and Java, Part 1 and Part 2. What you'll need to run these tutorials is an Eclipse environment with Java installed. I recommend Eclipse Neon, that's what we'll be using in this tutorial. You'll need the libraries that are included to compile and run your program. So these are the jar files. I've created a folder on Dropbox and provided the link below to download the exact jar files you need to complete this tutorials. Next one is the program console output. You'll either need an IDE or command prompt. Since we're using Java Eclipse, we can use the built-in Java console. You'll need an instance of Cassandra up and running. Below is a step-by-step guide of how to get an instance set up and loaded with some mock data. A key thing to note is that this data that is loaded in the tutorial or in the step-by-step Word document we have listed here is not the data we'll be using in these tutorials. So just note that the e-commerce data will not be used. So let's go ahead and dive into this. When you click on the Datastax link, you'll land here on the Datastax Academy page. List some of the requirements. We've already gone through the requirements. This is actually now a dead link, so it will not work. And let's move down here. So for this demo, we're going to be setting up and creating a console application. In the Datastax tutorial, they do this all through a text editor. However, as we specified earlier, we'll be using the Eclipse environment. For this demo, I've already set up a simple Java project. You can do so by just clicking New, Java Project, typing in the name, and then using Java 1.8. So this is our Cass demo project here that we'll be using. You can see the file structure here. We have our main Java file right here that runs our main class that starts this whole thing off. So let's come back to the tutorial instructions here. So in the tutorial they specify to create a public class called Getting Started. We have called this main Cass run. And here is your main function here. We have that here in our code. Now as we go through this, we've organized the code slightly differently. We have two functions called runTutorial1 and runTutorial2. Right now we are walking through runTutorial1, so we will comment out runTutorial2. And keep in mind, I will show you from here in the tutorial where all the code is going to be copied over into your Eclipse environment. So as I said before, I have posted a link to the Dropbox file where you can download these jar files. So if we follow this link here, you can see the zip for jar files. Simply download that as we have here, and you can open and extract those files. We're going to need to add those jar files to our build path so that they affect the program. So right click on your top level project folder here and click Properties. Click Java Build Path, click Libraries, and click Add External Jars. We have saved these jars in our jar files, so this is what the extracted jar file that you downloaded from Dropbox will look like. You can simply click Open and it will add it to your build path. like so. Click Apply, and then click OK. And then you should see those jar files listed in your Java reference libraries. Next, we're going to go ahead and just try out the code. So first, we're going to create cluster and session. As you can see, we have copied this code right over here. These will create a cluster object and a session object to handle the input that is going to your Cassandra cluster. So next, we're going to connect our instance to the cluster builder method and add a contact point and build a cluster instance. We're also going to get a session from the cluster and connect to the demo key space. So as you can see right here, we're setting our cluster with the cluster builder and we are adding a contact point. This is your local host IP address, so anything hosted locally on your machine will be hosted at this address, and we build there. And then the session in a cluster.connect demo is set right here. I'm going to pause from this real quick to ensure that during the step-by-step process you created the demo key space. Without that, this will not work. So just be sure to follow the Word document beforehand, and it will show how to create that demo key space. So now that we're connected to the key space, we're going to run a session execute, and we're going to insert users into the demo key space. So we'll insert last name, age, city, email, and first name, and the values of Jones 35 Austin at Bob at example.com, Bob. This will insert just basic user data for us. So next we want to see what we have inserted. So we'll build a result set called results, and then we're going to execute a CQL statement to gather the data that we just input into our key space. Then for each row that we get back, we are going to print out the first name and the age. Now, as the tutorial specifies, it is Bob's birthday, so we're going to update his age. Bob's getting a little old there. So, we are going to go ahead and copy and paste this code right here. And what it's going to do is going to execute another SQL statement that updates the users, and it's going to set age to 36 where last name equals Jones. So Bob Jones has turned 36, and we're just updating that. So we will set the results to what the session executes here, which is the select the users by last name from Jones. And then again, we're going to print that out, and we want to say see first name and age to ensure that we properly updated it. So this last chunk of code here is going to delete our user. So we're going to execute delete from users where last name equals Jones. And then we are going to again print the results to see that Bob Jones has been deleted. And we'll print that out here. Now, the last thing we're going to do is we're going to close our connection to the cluster. If you miss this step, you can eventually get a too many connections error when you are trying to connect to any database. So ensure to close your connection when you are done. Let's go ahead and save this code and run it so you can see the output. And that's exactly what we expected. Now you can go ahead and ignore some of this red text here. This is saying some things that are not applicable to what we are doing. It is giving some errors, but for now it's okay. So as you can see, Bob was 35, Bob is now 36, and we have deleted Bob, which is why there is no result from this section of our code. And that is a run-through of the very first tutorial. We'll go ahead and pause here, and then we're going to pick back up on the second tutorial. Alright, now we're going to get started with part 2. When you click the link, this is where you'll land, very similar to part 1. So again, we're going to be creating a simple console application. It's almost identical to part 1. We're going to explore some of the connection policies, the prepared statement, and the query builder. During the tutorial, they say to go ahead and create another class called Getting Started 2. Instead, what we are going to do, as we specified before, is we are going to have a separate function here called Run Tutorial 2. At the top, you see we have Run Tutorial 2 commented out from last time. I'm going to go ahead and remove that, and then comment out Run Tutorial 1. Click Save. We'll scroll down here to code. So notice again at the top here we have declared results set and rows at the top, which is not done in their code. I believe at some point while debugging and getting an understanding for this code, we moved it around. So don't let that frighten you, but go ahead and put that in your code. The next is we are going to play around with the cluster connection. So now we're going to go ahead and connect to our local host at a contact point, like we did last time, and then we are going to connect to demo. So now that we are actually connected to a cluster instead of a single instance, we're going to put some, as it says, safeguards in place to handle things like failover, redundancy, and things like that, retry policy, and a couple other items here. So as we scroll down, we can see that they have added the with retry policy, and they set a default retry policy instance. Notice that their IP address has changed here. We will keep that at localhost if you're running on your machine. I believe that's just an error in whoever was creating this tutorial. Next is a load balancing policy, which will determine which node is going to run a query. This will help with things like efficiency and handling load as queries come into your system. So as you get a larger data set, it'll be crucial to monitor this and understand how your application is using it. So we're going to add with load balancing policy a new token, and it creates a new token awareness policy and a new DC aware round robin policy, which sets it to a round robin style load balancing. You'll see we've input it here, and it actually has a slash through it. So this function is actually deprecated now. It'll still run and work. You get some options with Eclipse to add suppress warnings, We'll leave those so you can see what they look like, but you can add suppress warning to get rid of any error messages in the console here. So as we did in part 1, we're going to insert some data. So as we scroll down here, we're going to create a prepared statement. In the session as we're going to prepare, we're going to insert into users, last name, age, first name. This has those question marks here. That'll come into play in just a second here. Create a balance statement. And we're going to execute the balance statement and bind Jones 35 Austin Bob at example.com and Bob. Now what this is doing is finding where this value belongs in this question mark and inserting the proper data where it's supposed to be. So now we want to print out the result of what we just did. So we're just, as in part 1, we're going to use a query builder to select all from the keyspace demo, from the table of users, where, and the query builder uses last name Jones. Now the reason this is slightly different in terms that we're not just inputting a select all statement here, you notice the format is a little different, is it protects the application from SQL injection attacks. So using Query Builder as opposed to what we did in tutorial 1 is a little more secure. So then we're going to execute this, print and put our results into results. And then again for each row in results we're going to print out information, so we'll print out first name and age. Now, similar to the last tutorial, we're going to update the age of Bob. So go ahead and we'll copy and paste that code there. Now notice we are getting an error here. And the reason for this is in this code they are missing the query builder callout right there. So let's see if that solves our problem here. And it does. So we're going to update Bob's age to 36. And we're going to select and do a select all using Query Builder to show our results and print it out. Then we're going to delete the users from the table. As you can see, we have again Query Builder, select all, then we get our results here. So right now we have a duplicate variable issue, and I believe that is because of this row variable here. So to change this, we're going to simply create row 1 on all of these variables here. And it looks like we may have brought along an additional curly bracket as well. So I'm going to pause the video here and locate that, and I'll come back as soon as we have that fixed. Okay, so we're back now. We found that when we copied over, this chunk of code failed to input a curly bracket in the for each, or the for statement here. So from there, we'll pick up where we left off. Again, we're going to delete the users, just like in tutorial 1. And then we're going to clean up the connection by closing it. And again, remember, this is crucial to ensure you don't have too many connections running to your database that are no longer valid. So we'll go ahead and run our code. And again, we'll get these error messages that are not relevant, and then we'll see our output here, Bob 35, and then Bob turns 36. And that is the end of part 2 of the tutorial. Thanks for watching.